Well, hello and welcome. I am Darcy D, your virtual voice coach, and today we're going to be talking about breathing for singers. We're going to take a practical and performance-focused look at how singers can unlock their best voice through smarter breathing, not just more breathing. I'll explore the difference between support and control, what diaphragmatic breathing really means, and how the right breathing habits can radically improve stamina, control, and confidence. This is perfect for all levels of singers, from the shower vocalist to the stage pro. If you do have any questions, for those of you that have joined me live, just go into the chat and drop them in there. I'm going to cover a lot of areas, or a lot of topics on this subject, some controversial. Again, your questions are going to be imperative because I may say some things that you've never heard of before or thought that you shouldn't use as an approach, but this is how we're going to do this. And for those of you that I work with, I know that you probably know most of everything I'm going to tell you, but at any rate. Breath is one of the key concentrations for singers that, when initiated correctly, contributes to building a strong, healthy voice. If you have had any confusing advice that you've heard about breath or breath support, I'd like to hear it in the chat. Because for years, I believed as a singer that it was all about the breathing, and when I learned some of the things I'm going to introduce you to today, I thought, wow, how can this be so? But when you hear me out, you'll see how this can be applied. So if we look at what support means, because people talk about you have to have more breath support. What is breath support? Well, what is support? Support, the definition is to bear all or part of the weight of something. To hold up a thing that bears the weight of something or keeps it upright. So when you think about breath support, what does it hold up, if you say it that way? In my opinion, the question that I ask is, does breath support? Or does breath contribute? That's how I look at it. Breath is one area of concentration for singers. Breath comes from the lungs, and if you're sitting in front of me today, you have lungs. You're breathing, you're alive. So you know how to use your lungs. Your lungs work involuntarily. You inhale to fill the lungs, and you exhale to empty the lungs. You have total control of how you breathe. When you breathe, you can decide to stop breathing by holding your breath. You can take a little breath, or you can take a big breath. You can let it out slowly, or you can let it out rapidly. As a singer, the breath must flow continuously on an exhale. So it passes through the vocal cords, and it initiates the vibration that creates the sound waves. It doesn't take an exorbitant amount of breath to activate the vocal folds into a vibrating pattern. However, there are other factors or concentrations at play in the singing process. There must be balance among the concentrations in order for the flow of breath to contribute freely to that singing process. Is this making sense so far? So if we just bluntly said breath support equals maintaining consistent air pressure from the torso to power vocal fold vibration. So that might be a little confusing. Or breath control is regulating how much air is released and when. That's really how it pertains to vocalists. How much air we have, how we release it, and when. It's like gas in your car. So if you give it more gas, you have more power. If you give it less gas, you have less power. If you don't give it any gas, you're not going anywhere. So one of the things that I discovered in my vocal training as a coach is a myth that singing from the diaphragm. You must sing from the diaphragm and fill the theater. And at first I didn't really, I knew, the diaphragm was somewhere, down here in the stomach. And that's what people would say to me. I have to sing from the stomach, or I don't know how to use my diaphragm. Well, what is a diaphragm? What does it mean to actually sing diaphragmatically? And many voice teachers will say, sing from the diaphragm. The truth is, very few people know what a diaphragm is or where it's located in the body and how it actually works. And so this sort of decides that breathing is the end-all, be-all for singers. And it's not true. Breath is an activator, a contribution or a contributor to the noise-making process. So what I'd like you to do is just place one hand on your sternum and one hand just above your belly button. Okay, and what I want you to do is just breathe in and out. What do you notice? You notice that maybe your belly's coming in and out. Maybe your chest is coming out and then in again. Chad says more movement in the belly. Yeah, but you're a habitual meditator. Yeah, that's right. And see, and Tony has more movement in the chest. So as breathers, we all breathe differently. Is one way correct or incorrect? No, not really. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you. See if this works. This is the diaphragm. Now tell me if you can see my mouse. Roger that. Okay, so this is your sternum. This is the rib cage, right? And this is where the ribs come down, and this little hooded shaped muscle is the diaphragm. So it's hooded. It's attached to the lower rib cage, and your lungs, which sit up here in the thorax, are actually attached to the diaphragm. So then when you flex the diaphragm down, it pulls your lungs down like a slingshot, right? And that's when you feel the movement in the belly. So that's a cause and effect reaction of the diaphragm coming down. It coming down like this. So then what happens is when it pulls the lungs down, it creates what's called negative pressure inside the lungs and allows you to fill them quickly, right? So if we focus solely on the diaphragm, what we're going to get is, trouble, I believe. Because, and especially for young singers, because when we start building airflow or compression where we can take a lot of breath in and then we let that breath out really quickly and we hammer those vocal cords, that's going to cause some strain at first, especially if the little intrinsic muscles of the vocal cords are not ready or strong enough or conditioned to resist that breath, that vertical breath flow, right? So if it's all about the breath and we focus on breathing, and I know those of you that have the app, that the diaphragm, when we work it intentionally, we can create up to 200 watts of power, whatever that means, 200 pounds, $200, 200 beans, whatever it is. And then the little tiny mechanism here at the where your larynx is, where the vocal cords live, can only comfortably resist 2 watts of power. So if we work on breathing, we're going to blow this out faster than you can say abracadabra. And interestingly enough, I mentioned an old associate, Chris Johnson. He's from London. He's a vocal nerd, geek, teacher, teaches teachers to sing. He presented something the other day that kind of made sense to me. If you just fill your mouth with air like this, and it doesn't have to be pressurized, just fill it with air. Look how easy you can move the flesh of your face like this, right? Now imagine that you've taken a giant breath, you've got all this compressed air in your lungs, and you hammer your little tiny vocal cords like that. They're going to stretch. They're going to stretch. And when we stretch the vocal folds, it increases or raises the pitch But if we hammer the vocal cords, it's going to cause us to go sharp from the fundamental frequency we're trying to sing. That makes sense? That's going to be bad news. When we're breathing using the diaphragm, and I'll go back to this again. Oh, that's the wrong slide. There we go. So when we're breathing using the diaphragm, you can move that diaphragm 1 to 2 centimeters up and down during relaxed breathing. So the diaphragm's 1 to 2 centimeters. It's doing this. So it's quite relaxed. And the reason I'm uncovering this is because if you're a rock singer or you're singing a big Broadway number, it's going to be very difficult to sing in this sort of state, right? Now, during heavy exercise or enhanced breathing, the diaphragm can move maybe 10 centimeters. That's a considerable difference, right? So the diaphragm, being that hooded muscle that it is and attached to the lungs and the lower rib cage, and because it's like, I like to call it voluntary involuntary, because if you work it voluntarily, you can increase tremendous amounts of compression, which can be an advantage to your voice, and it can also be put your voice at a disadvantage because it can be dangerous. Right? And involuntarily, that diaphragm is going to keep you alive while you're sleeping. It's going to help you hiccup, and it's going to help you vomit. It's got some tremendous function. So what I'm getting at is that all the concentrations of a singer, of which singing or breathing is one, you can't just focus solely on breath, on inhaling and exhaling. You have to focus on vocal cord closure, and then how much breath you take and how much breath comes out. And then, of course, the vowel shapes are going to either contribute to the balance of that sound, or it's going to contribute to attenuating that sound and making it sound squeezy or pitchy or whatever. So all of these things have to be balanced. You'll be able to create more compression, but you might have some of these challenges. So there's more to breathing for singers than diaphragmatic. And of course, science has come such a long way in the last 10 years that we now know how we can use our breath, how we can teach our bodies to breathe correctly, to sing the songs, to exercise, to do the things that we need to do. So we're going to explore some science, debunk some myths, and emphasize posture's role in all of this. People say, should I stand when I sing? And yes, you should, but can I sit when I sing? Yes, you can. As long as you're not slouching and your posture's not tight, you won't have any restricted airflow. If you're slouching and your posture's tight, you will have restricted airflow. Tension can come from the extrinsic muscles, your sternocleidomastoid, the muscles of the jaw and the chin, that are going to come together and sort of squeeze, if you will, the intrinsic muscles of the vocal folds, allowing them not to function freely. It's going to give you restricted airflow and tension. So imagine, as a visualizer, imagine your torso is not a stiff column, right, from your hips to your shoulders. It's not a stiff column. Imagine it's like a soft cylinder. It's a different thought, right? We've got some flexibility. And think about what singers do subconsciously when they're singing. Their body moves. Some singers use their hands, and their face makes a face, so the brain tells the voice how it has to sound. We relive emotion, and breathing plays a huge part of that. So if our torso is a soft cylinder and it's flexible, that'll allow us to breathe easier. That'll allow us to accommodate what we need in the way of breath to make the sound that we need according to the emotional value of the lyrical content. So the diaphragm does not push out air. The breath is actually controlled. So the diaphragm flexes, right? Flexes. And what it does, and this is what we're going to get into next, the diaphragm allows the most important muscles for any singer to function. And those muscles are, you ready for this? The intercostal muscles. So the intercostal muscles, there's 3 layers of them, and they're in between the ribs. So right here, and these in between each rib, there's the intercostal muscles. The interior, the exterior, and the one in the middle. I forget the scientific names. But what happens is when you breathe, the mental demand for inhaling, the diaphragm is going to come down, but the intercostal muscles are going to come out and up. And they're going to lift, if you will. That's why sometimes raising your arms, you lift and you get that air, it just falls into your lungs. You can really fill the rib cage. So in inhalation, the diaphragm moves down and the intercostal muscles come up and out, filling that space. And on exhalation, the diaphragm relaxes and moves up, and the intercostal muscles come down and in. So you could liken it to, this. The diaphragm is going to drop down, the intercostal muscles are going to do this. And then in and of that, we have so much control that we can treat our soft torso like a giant tube of toothpaste or a cake decorating bag, and we can use the breath flow. We can control it now. How much do we need, depending on the size and shape of the vocal cords and the vowel that we're singing, to make this happen? Is it making sense? We do have a question. Yes. At one point, I was forced on singing with breath from the belly that I neglected the rib cage feeling open and free. Once I realized it all works together, I got better. That's a good point, Chad. A good point. This is why he can't belt to C3, I think, he says. Yeah, there's more to it than that, but yes. Tony says, when I breathe deeply and I feel the intercostal muscles moving, it feels really good and relaxing. Yes, it does. And Chad added, he's talking about pitch increasing when louder. Now, the thing is, does it have to be louder to increase the pitch? If it does, then it's probably not much to do with breath, and maybe more so to do with vocal cord closure and the resistance levels you've built up in those intrinsic muscles to bring the cords together, but not squeeze, but to hold them in place for said note, for said length of time. Well, I'll try to clarify that as we go. So breath is controlled by the intercostals, the abdominal muscles, and your posture, right? You cannot take a deep breath in the fetal position. It'd be hard, right? So those intercostal muscles are the most important respiratory muscle for normal speech and singing, for they're the muscles that propel air out through the mouth and nose. They consist of those 3 layers of external, internal, and innermost layers. Combined, they fill the space between your ribs. And the function during inhalation, again, let me show you this, just so you can stay with me. I think I have another picture here. So during inhalation, the diaphragm contracts and pulls downward. At the same time, the muscles between the ribs contract and pull upward. This increases the size of your thoracic cavity and decreases the pressure inside, negative air pressure. As a result, air rushes in and fills the lungs. It's a lot like you've seen anyone with a plastic bag, and they, instead of blowing vigorously into the bag, they just open the end and drag it through the air, and it fills it up. This is the same principle. So it's a great way to look at it. Now, I'd like to introduce some methods of breathing in no particular order, but what I've found is that when we do these exercises, it's not only good for my singing, it's good for me mentally, it's good for me physically, and it allows me to rebalance. So what I like to do is, if you're sitting, just sit square. Your shoulders don't have to be back like, the soldier. Just relax, make sure they're square. And what we're going to do, we're just going to exhale, get rid of the breath, and then we're going to inhale on a count of 4. And then we're going to hold it for a count of 4. Then we're going to exhale for a count of 4, and we're going to hold it for a count of 4. That is one pattern. And then you can repeat this pattern as often as you'd like. If you do get dizzy, that's fine. If you feel like you can inhale more, great. But just keep the pattern balanced. The amount of time you spend exhaling is the same amount of time you hold, is the same amount of time you inhale. So do it with me. I'll try to count with my fingers. It won't be exactly 4 seconds, but it'll be very close. So we're just going to exhale and then inhale. And hold. And exhale. And hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And so on and so on. So on the inhale, breathe in through the nose. On the exhale, through the mouth. Right? And again, you can hold this for longer if you'd like, but you just repeat that a couple of times. And what you notice is now what I want you to do is put your hand back on your sternum and just above your belly button. And I'd like you to breathe again. Tell me what happens. Does it feel freer? Does the air seem to come into your body smoother and faster? Do you feel like you could take more breath in? So these are some of the things that can happen. So I call it the balancer. This rebalances the breathing process. And Tony just mentioned in the chat, she said at first, before we did this exercise, she felt the chest or the lift first or more, and now more belly breathing this time. So again, it's not all about belly breathing, but if we can certainly drop that breath, then we have more room to fill the lungs and it'll be easier. And then Chad just said, I have found that acting like you're blowing through a straw will assist you in the exhale portion for a longer period of time if necessary. Well, there you go. So now what you're going to learn to do is to increase your ability to breathe free and to increase how much breath you can take in, and then maybe how quickly you can relieve of it. And the purpose of this kind of breathing, it's like a nervous system reset. You're preparing your body for singing. It's also very good for your mind, right? So if you're just getting ready for a performance, you're feeling a little bit nervous, some breathing like this will help you reset that. It'll help you regain your focus. I mean, by the time you hit the stage, you know the songs, you know the melody, you've rehearsed it before, maybe hundreds of times. And now all you have to do is reset the body to help you with those little nerves that pop up. So this becomes really excellent. Now, this is an exercise that I was taught by one of my vocal coaches many years ago. This one can be kind of dangerous. It can make you dizzy. But I find, and especially for rock singers or singers that have to sing really big, or singers that sing songs that have a lot of lyrics in them, and you have to squeeze all these lyrics into one line on one breath, and it has to all come out, and it has to be pronounced correctly, and et cetera, et cetera. This is a very good exercise for this. So I don't really have a name for this. I call it sequential breathing, right? Because we're going to do it in sequence. And I was taught that you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth because it's going to stimulate the soft palate. Here's how this one works. You're going to exhale all your breath, and then you're going to inhale through the nose once, and you're going to fill. And then you're going to exhale through the mouth aggressively to empty once. Right? And then you're going to do 2 in, 1 out. And so you're going to inhale twice consecutively. On the second one, you're going to fill to capacity. And then on the exhale, you're going to empty. So it's like this. So 2 in, 1 out. 2 in, 2 out. right? Feel a little dizzy when you do it. 3 in, 1 out. 3 in, 2 out. 3 in, 3 out. Now you can work this sequence up to 11 if you wanted. So you can, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, and then 11, 2. It just is, you just work up the sequence to as many as you can do without passing out, of course, right? And then you could probably follow this one up with the first exercise we did. Count to 4 and hold. This will sort of reset, and especially if you're getting dizzy, and then repeat the whole sequence at least once, and this will rebalance. It will help you build awareness of breath capacity without overfilling, right? So you're going to be able to take more breath when it's all balanced, more easier, easily, and then you'll be able to control the flow out because you're accustomed to holding your breath. Then how about just be accustomed to closing the vocal cords, and then on the vocal onset, if my lungs are full and I go, that might be too much. But if I, I can control the release as well. So then depending on the vowel, depending on the emotional value, depending on where it is in the register, I will have the reserve, I'll have the needs, the means to make it happen. So these are all good, and of course, and I say this a lot, I say it in the app, if you can exercise, please do. If you can ride an exercise bike or a street bike or a mountain bike, if you can walk the treadmill, if you can walk around the block, any way to get your body moving and the breath flowing. Think about your breath when you're exercising. For those of you that run, you know that after a certain amount of time, you hit the wall, and if you keep going, suddenly everything is relaxed. Breathing is in sync. Your heart is and everything seems to be just so focused, and you can run another 5 miles, right? Or let's say another 300 yards, whatever it is. You can make it happen. You can as long as you do something to keep that body alive. Your body's your instrument. Keep it flowing, keep it balanced, right? Now, this next set that I'm going to show you is something I learned from, again, Chris Johnson. He had the podcast, Naked Vocalist. He now teaches teachers to teach voice, and he's just brilliant. He works with everyone and anyone in the vocal world, like Dr. Ingo Tsitse, and so his information is usually relevant, and his bonus is he's a singer. So he really gets it. He knows what it's like to perform. He knows what it's like to sing sick. He knows. So, and some of these exercises that he showed me recently were just amazing. And he talked about the types of breathers. So we have what's called overbreathers. And overbreathers, they take too much breath. They take too much breath for the line that they're singing. And they try to spend all that breath, and it causes problems. The lungs become too full. It forces clavicle breathing, so we're locked up here. We take in way too much breath, and then you can't control the exhale, and eventually you're out of breath. Why are you out of breath? You just took a giant breath. So you're over breathing, right? You can't control the smooth exhale. Focusing too much on the breath, perhaps. And this is where, those that practice breathing is the end-all be-all for singers. This is where you're going to fall short. It's going to backfire on you. And then we have underbreathers. And these are shallow, inadequate breaths that we take that just don't give us enough of anything till eventually we just have to squeeze the sound out, and then we got nothing left anyways because we didn't have enough to start with in the onset. So often not enough to supply the line being sung or the note being held. Can't get the volume, right? So it's not that breath is going to, it's not how you get volume, it's the compression of breath that can give you volume. How we can And here's something that I like to use. I'm just going to go off script here for a second. And I know I've said this to you, some of you that I work with. If I had a balloon and the balloon represented my lungs, okay, I'm going to fill that balloon and then I'm just going to let the end go. So that's using all my breath rather quickly. It's a larger opening and the natural compression of that filled balloon expired it, right? So that's much like chest voice. So in the lower register of our voice, we use more breath, and breath will expel or escape quicker, right? And if we press down on that, it's gone, right? So, but that's what accommodates lower notes. Now, if I fill the balloon and pinch the end, no air is going to escape until I gently right? So that's higher register. That's head voice. And in head voice, as we know, the vocal cords get longer and smaller. There's less vibrating mass. There's more ligament cartilage enabled. So it has natural tension to begin with. And because those cords are so small, and we're now using the cricothyroid muscle, if we hit that with a very large amount of breath, it's either going to blow the note apart, blow the chords apart, or it's going to flip, or it's going to get stuck, right? So if you think about that, yes, we need the breath, but in head voice, we're not going to use it all. So again, fill it, pinch the end, and in order to activate that naturally tense vocal cord system, I just have to pry. Now, if my balloon is half full and I pinch the end, how on earth am I going to get that out without squeezing it? Because I don't have the compression I need to activate the notes in head voice. Make sense? When we learn how to balance the breathing, we're going to find that things are going to be better. So if you can't get the power, maybe you're an underbreather. Now, I wanted to share this exercise that Chris talked about. Here we go. Okay. So he calls this breath equalization. Now, I believe he got this from a voice coach, Robin DeHaas, I want to say. I believe this was his brainchild. And this is called breath equalization. So if you're stressed out, you're not going to be breathing balanced. If you just woke up, you're not going to be breathing balanced. If you're concerned, you have things on your mind, if you're scattered, you're not going to be breathing in a balanced state. So how can we equalize our breath flow? So what we're going to do is we're just going to take some breaths. Just take some breaths. And that doesn't have to be big, just breathe. Okay? And then after a few breaths, what I want you to do is sigh like this. And just feel how that feels. What this is called is REL, or resting expiratory level. So this is how we breathe. We can either inhale at this point or we can exhale at this point. It's kind of like middle ground, right? So what we do is we exhale to neutral and we're going to notice how the breathing returns. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to build awareness over our exhalation versus natural resting breath. What we want to do, I'll just have to demonstrate here. So when we get after the sigh, we're neither breathe in or out, right? So at this point, I could inhale or I could exhale, right? So after the sigh, so I'm in middle ground. I'm in no man's land. I can either inhale or I can exhale. I'm neither breathed in or breathed out. So on what we're going to do after this now is we're going to breathe a few times. We're going to sigh, and then we're going to count from 1 to 10 repeatedly with a very soft voice, moving much breath like we're trying to fog up the glass or a window. I don't want it to be squeezed. I want you to just say 1 to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, repeatedly until you are absolutely out of air. So here's what it would sound like when you do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm out. And then when I breathe, it just seems to fill my whole torso. Just try that once. Breathe a few times, sigh, count out loud to 10 repeatedly on a very soft, like fogging up the window breath until you're completely out of breath, and then inhale again. Right? We're balanced. We are definitely rebalanced. So this works tremendously well. And I'm assuming you can do this as many times as you'd like. And again, once the air is depleted, inhale normally. And then you can repeat the process by just a few breaths and then sighing. Of course, all your worries will go away too, Chad. Yes. I mean, wherever you are in the world, it's before noon here. So I've been up for a few hours. I haven't done much work, in preparing for this presentation today. I didn't do much breathing, and suddenly just the few exercises we've done, I feel better. And I feel like I could start to exercise almost. I could start to warm up my voice, and it would probably be really good for me. Okay, so this is another one that, and I may have shown this to some of you. I know we've called one of them box breathing, counts of 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever that is for you, whichever works best. This is also called breathing in a box. Now, if we imagine that our soft torso is a box, it's going to be wider than it is deep, and it's going to be as tall, our shoulders, right down to the bottom of our hips. Okay? Now, this is why I recommend whenever you're about to sing or perform that you don't have a lot of food in your belly, because below the diaphragm is your intestines. And if you have a lot of food in there, it's going to be hard to allow the diaphragm to come down, right? And it's going to feel like you're breathing clavically. So the less food you have in your system when you need to sing, the more this breathing in a box will make sense. So just sitting straight, you can maybe throw your arms to the side and then just drop them down, right? So we're not slouching and we're not at attention, but we have decent posture. And what I want you to do is just breathe in through the nose and fill to capacity or near capacity, and exhale through the mouth. Just do that a few times. I'm inhaling. And then exhaling. And what I'd like you to notice, or what I'd like you to become aware of after you do it this next time, what part of your body moves? What part comes out? What part moves primary? What part moves secondary? Now, as you do this in through the nose, you may find that your belly comes right out. You may find that it's a combination of your chest and your belly lifting simultaneously. You may find that it's your chest or your shoulders, or maybe it's more of a combo, right? So now what I want you to do is exhale and remove all the breath. I want you to do it again, but this time on purpose or intentionally. I want you to fill a different part of your box first. Maybe it's your shoulders coming up. Maybe it's the top of your chest. Maybe it's your upper back, your middle back. See if you can place the breath somewhere else. Right? So and then relax. Hold the breath and exhale. Were you able to put it somewhere else? Were you able to move that breath to a different place this time. If you can, this is a really good sign, because what I'm going to want you to do this next time, I'm going to want you to let's fill your belly. Let's drop that diaphragm, allow the intercostals to open up, and we're going to put all the breath in the bottom of the lungs. You do understand you're not breathing from your belly. That's the response of the diaphragm being activated. What I want you to do is drop it to the belly, and I want you to hold your breath. So we're going to go like this. It's in the belly. I'm holding my breath. My belly feels a little firm. Now, what I want you to do without exhaling, I want you to relax the belly and then slightly tense the belly. Without exhaling, relax the belly, tense the belly. Now exhale. How much breath came out? Was it a lot? Was it the same amount you put in? Where did it go? Right? Where is it? I know. So this is interesting how the body's taking that oxygen, right? This time we're going to do it again. We're going to exhale, inhale, fill the belly, and then holding your breath, I want you to move the air to your chest, to the top of your lungs, like this. Belly. Without taking more air in. No inhale or exhale. Now drop it back down to the belly. Back up. Back to the belly. Relax. Exhale. Was that weird? Was that uncomfortable? Was that difficult to do? See, we have way more control over our breath, how much we take in and how much we use, than we ever thought possible. And when you learn to, and I know some of you are meditators, so you're pretty good at breathing, but it's a great way to feed the body. And I do this exercise sometimes with folks that have a hard time taking enough breath in or activating enough breath on an exhale. And I'm just going to show you. But this is a very simple exercise. You're going to breathe, and you're going to say the S. Till you're out, okay? Now, whatever release that you use, whatever resisted level of this sound, you keep it the same for the duration of the exercise, however long it is. And you're just expelling as continually as much air as possible. And then when you do it again and inhale and reset, you may find that you can take more breath in because you've emptied the lungs and you've created this vacuum. So when the mental demand to inhale again, it's just going to drop the breath. And I like to say to singers, when you breathe, don't gasp. There's no need to gasp for air. There's no need to try to shove as much breath as you can get in there. When you open up your body like we've been doing with these exercises, you should be able to, on a whim, take as much breath as you need for any line, as we demonstrated in that exercise we just did. So you can breathe like you just saw something, the newest thing, something that blew your mind. That's how you breathe. You go, wow, right? And that'll fill your lungs. It'll drop your breath. If you've been doing these exercises and your soft torso will just like, hello, I'll take that breath. And then you can activate it again. I'm out. And there's no need to force it. Like as soon as it starts to run out, your vocal cords are going to squeeze together. We don't want that either, right? Now, this is just an S. You can sing that, but it's not really singing, right? So if you opened up onto an exercise with this, you may find maybe you can't last as long. And that's okay, and that's probably true. So, but what we just did, how many lines in a song are that long that you need to expel breath that long to sing that line? Very few, if any, right? So if I put it on a couple of vowels, like the diphthong we, I'm out, right? Comfortably out. I could have squeezed a few more, but you see what I'm saying? That's a long time. So did we increase the ability to activate more outflow of the breath on the onset of making noise with the vocal folds? Yes, we did. Yes, you can. Right? So you can do that really long scale repeatedly, and for that matter, it can just be a count. You can just count, set a timer or a metronome, and then change the resistance value. So it can be a soft that's going to burn air faster. It can be medium, and it can be aggressive. And you will feel the difference in your belly when you do that. Because like the balloon demonstration, you're going to have to get involved to activate that noise. Right? So just do that, or you can do that on the S or the SH. You start with 5 seconds, 10, 15 seconds, and just keep extending it, right? It trains support, and it trains your breath support or breath flow, your breath contribution, and chord closure, without blowing everything out. So these are some things that you can do. Now, when we talk about posture, again, not slouching. So to do simple exercises, warm-ups, map out a song, you can be sitting. It may come a time in the song where you're going to have to stand up because you're going to be throwing those notes farther. I use the javelin analogy or the beanbag. Short notes, hey, across the room, hey, and across the parking lot, you got to stand up and launch that javelin, and so it's going to take more. But now you see, it's not so much about the breath making that note happen, those bigger notes or those longer notes. It's about the balance between the chord closure, the laryngeal position, dopey, neutral, bratty, breath flow, and the vowel that you shape, because some are going to be easier than others. And so breathing is something we do naturally, something we can do intentionally, and something we can build to accommodate the emotional lyrical content and how it has to be distributed, how the message has to be sent, right? So you'll notice that over time this will become easier. You'll notice that maybe it feels complicated and you're not able to put the breath in different places. You can always go back to any one of those breathing exercises, count of 4 or the count of whatever, balanced, and then the one where you treat your body like a big soft box, and you'll be able to breathe. And in doing that, you're going to accommodate balance, you're going to reset your mind, and the more you experience with this, the more you'll learn that it's possible and you can do this. And be aware of tensions when you sing, in the jaw, in your tongue, under the jaw here, in your neck, your shoulders. So in addition to breathing, there's always a good stretching session. And I think we've talked about that in previous webinars. So all of these things, anything you can do for your body, hydrate, balanced diet, a little bit of exercise, some focused intentional breathing, some focused intentional stretching, some focused intentional warm-ups into focused intentional balanced singing of songs and telling stories. And that's where we're at. If you've liked what you've seen today, I would appreciate the likes, the shares, and the subscribes because it's good for me, and I appreciate it. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I appreciate all of you who will watch this later, repeatedly. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always find me online, and I'm usually always here. This is where I sit and live most of my days.